Good morning, dear sisters. We are continuing today the study of our lesson for this week. And today's lesson, the title is The Greatest Servant. Question A. What price was Jesus soon to pay for the sins of the world? Jesus soon was to go up to Jerusalem, and there he would be delivered into the chief priests and into the scribes, and them shall condemn him to death. They would condemn him to death. So Jesus was trying to prepare the minds of his disciples about the future, about what was going to happen to him. That he would go up to Jerusalem, and there he would be delivered into the hands of the scribes and of the Pharisees, the priests, and they would condemn him to death. And that would be a very something very heavy and very difficult for the disciples to go through, for Jesus also. But Jesus was trying to prepare their minds to talk about these hours so they could be ready to face these trials. But the disciples, they were thinking something else. Question B. What was the disciples' reaction when Jesus told them of his future sufferings? The disciples, they did not understand what Jesus meant about these words, and they were afraid to ask. They didn't have courage to ask Jesus to explain them what was these words, what was going to happen. And when Jesus told them that they were going up to Jerusalem, their hopes kindled that Jesus was going to establish his kingdom there. And they start to wondering who would be the greatest in his kingdom, who would have the greatest position in his kingdom. And they start to dispute among themselves which should be accounted greatest in the kingdom. Question C. How did they show that they still did not understand the nature of his kingdom? Jesus asked them later what they were talking about on the road. What were they arguing about? And they could not say anything because they were discussing, arguing about that, about who would be the greatest in the kingdom of God. And then Jesus, sitting down, he called the 12 disciples and said, anyone who wants to be the first must be the very last and the servant of all. Jesus patiently sat down with his disciples and tried again to explain to them what was his kingdom about. He was trying to tell them that his kingdom was about being humble, not about the greatest one, because the greatest one should be the smallest one. The first should be the last. But the disciples, they did not understand, they did not get the words of Jesus, what he meant about these words. The text from Desire of Ages says, page 250 from the chapter Who is the Greatest? Now the cross was just before him, and his own disciples were so filled with self-seeking, the very principles of Satan's kingdom, that they could not enter into sympathy with their Lord or even understand him as he spoke of his humiliation for them. Very tenderly, yet with solemn emphasis, Jesus tried to correct the evil. Jesus was trying to show them that before honor is humility. So he called the little child and he said, "Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven." The simplicity, the self-forgetfulness, and the confiding love of a little child are the attributes that heaven values. These are the characteristics of real greatness. So these are the attributes of that heaven values: the simplicity and self-forgetfulness, and also being humble. So may the Lord help us that today we meditate in these words, and that we can think what are the principles that Jesus wants us to have so we can be part of his kingdom. Not trying to be the greatest or the first, but we can be humble and sit at the feet of Jesus and learn from his lessons. May the Lord bless each one, and we will continue our lesson tomorrow. Until then,